Leia. I've seen it all, you know, from the galaxies far, far away to the hearts of men right here on Earth. But let's talk about your choices for a moment. You've done some pretty impressive things, I won't deny that. Leading the rebellion, standing tall against the Empire, those are not small feats. But I've got to ask, did you ever pause to reflect on the weight of responsibility that comes with leadership? You know, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that might makes right, that leading a rebellion means you're automatically in the clear. But remember, in Proverbs 16:9, it says, "In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." You've been walking your path, but I think you missed a few steps I laid out for you along the way. Don't get me wrong, you're brave, Leia. You've got the heart of a lion. But even lions can learn a thing or two from lambs, if you catch my drift. Remember that time when you watched Alderaan crumble under the weight of the Death Star? That had to hit hard, and I'm sure it left a mark. The Bible speaks about leaders who weep for their people. Remember King David? He was a warrior just like you, but he always turned to me when the weight became too much. Leia, I think you've tried to shoulder too much on your own, and sometimes, even in leadership, that can lead to some questionable decisions. Take a deep breath. I've got some ideas on how you can course correct. First of all, let's talk about patience. I know you've got fire in your heart, but sometimes you rush into things without taking a moment to consider all the consequences. Proverbs 14:29 says, "Whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick-tempered displays folly." Sound familiar? Yeah. That time you practically barked orders at everyone like you had the galaxy's problems figured out. Might have been a little rash. If you had taken a moment to breathe, to really assess the situation with wisdom, I think you'd find that even in the chaos of rebellion, there's a way to lead with love instead of just strategy. And let's not forget the time you had the chance to reach out to your father, Darth Vader. I mean, I know the guy had some serious dark side baggage. But didn't I teach you that even the most lost can be found? Look, I get it. Family stuff. It's messy. But remember the parable of the prodigal son? It's never too late to turn around, to come back to the light. Sometimes, Leia, the greatest battles aren't fought with blasters and lightsabers. They're fought with forgiveness. But we'll get to that later. Now I know what you're thinking. But Jesus, the Empire was ruthless. What else could I have done? Well, that's the thing. You didn't always have to react. You could have led with more peace. Romans 12:18 tells us, "If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." I'm not saying you should have invited Emperor Palpatine over for tea. I mean, that guy's creepy. But what if you had found a way to soften your approach, to bring more of your compassionate side into play? People follow leaders who they believe not only have power, but also care. They would have still followed you, Leia. Trust me on that one. The thing is, Leia, the more you let yourself get consumed by the battles you fought, the more you started to lose sight of the bigger picture. I get it. Wars tend to do that. But let's not forget that my teachings are all about the long game. Matthew 5:9 says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." That's you, Leia, a peacemaker. Or at least you could be, if you focused more on creating peace rather than just defeating enemies. There's a subtle art in that, and while we're at it, don't think I didn't notice the guilt you've been carrying, the heavy burden of leading, the weight of every decision, the lives lost. It's a lot for one person to bear. and I understand. But let me remind you of something important from Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. I'm not saying you should abandon your responsibilities, but sometimes, Leia, you need to let go of the guilt that's been anchoring you down. Guilt doesn't make you stronger. It makes you tired. And you need all the energy you can get when you're taking on an empire. You've been shouldering a lot, trying to navigate between doing what's right and what's necessary. But often, the two aren't mutually exclusive. You don't have to compromise your values to win a battle. If anything, holding on to them is what will win the war. I know you've made tough decisions. Some were necessary, but others, well, let's just say that a little more grace could have gone a long way. And Leia, when you faced betrayal, like with Lando, I saw the hurt, the anger. You felt like trust had been shattered. But there's something you need to realize. People are flawed, all of them. Even the best of them will let you down at some point. It's a hard truth, but it's also a freeing one. You don't have to be perfect, and neither do the people around you. That's why forgiveness is such a powerful tool. But we'll get into that more in the next part. Leia, I've been watching you for a long time, and I can tell. Your heart is in the right place. You genuinely want to do good, to protect the innocent, to stop the darkness from spreading. And that's commendable. But here's the thing. Even good intentions can lead to bad outcomes if they're not aligned with love. You've been fighting hard, no doubt about that. But have you ever asked yourself, why are you fighting? If your answer is to win, you're missing the bigger picture. The goal isn't just to defeat the empire. It's to build something better afterward. And that requires more than just strategy and strength. It requires love. Love for the people you're trying to protect, and even love for the people who are on the other side of the battle. Hold on. I know what you're thinking. Jesus, how am I supposed to love the people trying to destroy everything I stand for? Well, I'm not asking you to invite them over for a family dinner or anything. But love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. In Matthew 5:44, Zai said, "Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." Now, before you roll your eyes, hear me out. This doesn't mean you have to be best friends with Emperor Palpatine, but it does mean you need to approach the situation differently. When you let hate, anger, or bitterness take control, you become just as lost as the people you're fighting against. Love, on the other hand, keeps you centered. It helps you see the bigger picture, even when things look hopeless. Remember when you thought all was lost after the destruction of Alderaan? You were filled with rage, and rightly so. But the path you took afterward was a little shaky, wasn't it? I saw you toughen up, shutting out those emotions, building walls around your heart. But doing that doesn't protect you. It isolates you. And isolated people don't make the best leaders. Trust me on this one. You can't lead with fear. Fear is the fuel of the dark side, right? And if you lead from a place of fear or anger, it's only a matter of time before you start making decisions that stray further from the light. Love. Now that's where your real strength lies. 1 Corinthians 13:13 says, "And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love." That's a power no dark side force can match. It's what makes people follow you, not just because you're strong, but because they believe in you. And that brings me to another point, your motives. I can see it in you, Leia. You want justice. You want to right the wrongs. But justice without mercy isn't justice at all. It's vengeance, and vengeance doesn't heal. It only creates more wounds. There's a reason I've always preached about turning the other cheek. Not because I'm soft, but because it takes real strength to forgive and show mercy in the face of evil. You don't have to fight darkness with darkness. You can fight it with light. You've been trained to see the galaxy in terms of rebels versus the Empire, good versus evil. But life's a little more complicated than that. You've got to remember that people, even the ones wearing the Empire's uniforms, are still people. They've just lost their way. They weren't born evil. They made choices, bad ones. But they can make better choices if someone shows them the way. Imagine the difference it would make if instead of always looking at the enemy as someone to defeat, you saw them as someone who could be redeemed. I know. It's hard. It's really hard. But redemption is possible, Leia. Just look at your father. If Darth Vader can come back to the light, then maybe, just maybe, so can others. Look at me. I spent my time with people that others wrote off as hopeless, tax collectors, sinners, even zealots. But I never saw them as lost causes. I saw them as people who could be found. And you need to start seeing that, too. Your mission isn't just to defeat the bad guys. It's to bring as many people into the light as you can. And you can't do that with a closed heart. All right, I've laid the groundwork. Let's move forward, shall we? There's more to uncover here, but remember this. No matter how much you've done, how many mistakes you've made, I'm not here to condemn you, Leia. I'm here to show you that there's always a better way forward. Stay tuned